Welcome to Commsverse. This session is called Supercharged Teams Phone System with Anywhere365’s Attendants, Contact Centre, Reporting and more, and will today be presented by Andy Whiteside.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Andy Whiteside here from Anywhere365. I'm the UK manager from Workstream People, and I'm going to show you, share with you our thoughts and our ideas about how we can help organisations move into the Teams migration that most people are trying to do currently. So hopefully this session will be useful for all of you. Anywhere365 is an omni-channel communications platform. Most people know us in the contact center space. For those of you that haven't been exposed to us before, we're a Dutch organisation, but with a global footprint. We've been around just under 10 years and are servicing over 1,000 customers globally. We are very embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem, so we're certified by Microsoft, but we also leverage all of the investment you've made in your Microsoft estate. So not only Teams, but we embed some of our core component pieces into that Microsoft ecosystem. The primary aim for us really was to reduce the amount of unnecessary dialogue. So to move away from the typical contact center type applications that allowed you to sort of navigate your way through. But if we could make that process simpler from a customer service perspective, then that's what we set out to do with our software. We're going to introduce some terminology of enterprise dialogue management, which is really away from the contact center, but opens that capability out to most of the organization. And our belief is that everybody could be part of a contact center if cost wasn't a prohibiting factor. So I mentioned enterprise dialogue management. That's a phrase we use, and really that's a disruptor in terms of the way that we go to the market. We also understand that communication takes place with different parts of a business, not only the sales teams or not only the customer service teams, but often a dialogue with a customer can be in any part of the organization. So one of the things that we try to do is encourage that and bring our solution to the back office. So we can provide contact center to large organizations, but ultimately we can also, because of our model, bring that into a smaller back office team so that we can get a full user experience. So the customer journey from start to finish is captured. We can see all of that activity, and we're not just reporting on what goes on in the contact center, but then we lose track of that once it gets escalated into the back office. We provide attendant console for Teams and for Skype, but we're primarily focusing on Teams today, and we'll bring all of those modern modalities and the way that people want to communicate with you into that organization. Our engine really is the thing that made us famous. We take a dialogue and we want to be able to route that into the most appropriate agent with the appropriate skills in the quickest possible time. And whilst doing that, we want to be able to record and report on all of that journey so that we can see right down to the granular level exactly what happens within our organization. We did a lot of work last year in the public sector space, and those guys have had 10 years worth of austerity, so they are aware of the challenges of trying to deliver more with less money. And what really we're seeing now is the ability to try and include more advanced services. So what does the contact center of the future look like? How does the way that we engage with our customers look? And actually, for those smaller transactional processes, we think the introduction of AI and automation and bots and those types of things will actually complement the contact center so that we can reserve the more complex requirements for the agents. And we obviously want to include all of our available channels. So that typically that would have been a voice or an email message years ago in a business-to-business world. But if we're working in the service provider space, then those guys want to be able to use the tools they've got in their personal environment with their conversations with their service providers. As I mentioned, 1,000 global customers in 60 different countries. You'll recognize some of those logos. There isn't a vertical that we specialize in, so we can add value to pretty much every business. The thing that brings all of these customers together is that they're using Microsoft as their telephony platform. So they will all be using Skype or Teams as their voice platform. Some more of our UK customers. A broad spectrum really, from private organisations to education, to public and central and local government type organisations, as well as private companies. In terms of our architecture, the way we sit, we typically would deploy using this model these days. So we have 3 component pieces to our solution. The first is the application, and that application will sit in our Dialog Cloud. That's a consumption-based model, and typically that would connect a local SBC at the customer level with our SBC in the cloud, and we'd use direct routing in most of those cases. Then there's 2 other component pieces that lend itself into that Microsoft ecosystem. The first is that we provide the customer with a template, which is where you'd manage and configure your call flows and your contact center, and that's in SharePoint, SharePoint Online. And then the third component is the database, which is where all the CDR records reside, where all the management information lives, and that's an instance of SQL, again locally or in the cloud. So in terms of how our solution builds and what we do, left-hand side is all of the different contact options you would have in a modern communication platform. And as I said, that would have been the reserve of the business-to-business email and voice. But typically, we're seeing that explode out into lots of different channels: Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, those types of methods. Then we'll show you in a little while the interface that we provide, which is the template in SharePoint, and that's where we manage all of our communication flows. And within that environment, we've already determined roles and responsibilities. We've already got those security provisions taken care of, and that's where then we can start to apply some business logic around what our call flows look like. So we can apply things like machine learning here. We might route based on a skill of an agent, for example. We could also within this determine actually if as part of this process that in customer services, for example, the best way to deal with an inquiry there is to route you through to the last person you spoke to. We can apply those sorts of rules within here. It might be that we have some information in a back office system that will help us route that call or that to dialogue in a better way. And that's what I talked about earlier on, is that whole dialogue management piece where we might have in a CRM system a contact card of a VIP caller or somebody that's vulnerable or at risk, and we might want to change the way that we handle that process as part of that communication flow. Then we can start to look at advanced features. So we look into our Dialog Studio or in our Azure-based subscription area, and we can start to bring in other specialized products that would add value to the contact center. And often we're seeing things like cognitive services. Can we understand sentiment of a call? Could we figure out, whether there's raised voices, whether there's bad language being used? Could we utilize that at some point to be able to initiate a call handling process for a difficult customer, for an agent, for example? Bots, we're seeing an awful lot of integration into bots because they can automate and help in that self-serve world. So we allow you to pull the bot frameworks that you've got from that activity that's happened. One of the logos in a previous slide was a global logistics provider, and they actually dealt with their initial inquiries off a chatbot. When that bot got exhausted of its local database of frequently asked questions, and it got escalated into a web chat with an agent. And actually, then we start to utilize even more of those services to be able to deal with global language issues. So if an inquiry came in the Netherlands, for example, and we only have Spanish agents, then they could still facilitate that chat, and we get that subscription translation service to deal with the translation for us. So lots of areas there. Things like call analytics software is really something that we're seeing a lot more of as well, and being able to integrate into those specialist platforms then allows us to bring those into the contact center. And that doesn't just serve us for now. That obviously looks at the roadmap and helps future-proof any future technologies that we think might help in our dialogue management going forward. And then from a contact center or a management perspective, we like to provide some tools that allow you to surface the information that you need, not only to manage a contact center, but more and more we're seeing, how do we manage a remote workforce? How can we see what our agents are doing when they're not in the office anymore? And those agents don't have to be frontline contact center agents. They can be members of a back office team. Are we hitting the SLA for our accounts team on our answered calls? Are we seeing what our presence and our status is from our agents. Are they doing the things that they expect to be doing whilst they're not in the office anymore? So a really a detailed set of tools that allow both real-time and historical reporting. And then if we think about it from an agent's perspective, we can have full-blown contact center agents as we expect, and those can live in teams. They can surface some information from a back office system, and then we can give a timeline so that we can show inbound inquiry, inbound callers any history that they've had previously with that organization. We could also just have a basic Teams client, and that at its most basic, that could be all we provide. But we could still have management and recording and reporting for all of the organization if they're not full-blown contact center agents. We're launching a web agent for reception for Teams this month, and that will give you a reception attendant or an attendant console for those users within that environment. What we're also seeing is the integration for power workers to things like Dynamics or Salesforce or ServiceNow from an ITSM perspective. So this is where those power users want to live in their CRM world, and then they want to be able to sit in that single place but manage their calls and their contact within that single view. At its most basic, we can provide agents on a PSTN capability, so they can deliver a call to a PSTN number, mobile or landline, if all else fails. And then we've got an application called Bridge that we built for a sales organization. They wanted a similar experience to you would get from sat at your desk with your Teams and your CRM system open, but those guys were mobile, so they sat on their smart devices and wanted to be able to report on similar activity, so we could see open cases, any history, that sort of stuff. And in that case, we even ran that through a transcription service that then would have posted that back into a CRM system for those particular types of users. So I think at this point, we're going to jump straight into a quick demo. I want to show you a couple of the interfaces. I'm conscious that we have got quite a limited amount of time today. So I think what we'll do is show you the template I mentioned in SharePoint. So this is an example of that. This is my demo environment. It shows me how many users I've got within my contact center, the types of skills that we have here. I can also do outbound activity, so I can make an outbound campaign from here, and that's either as a campaign from your CRM system. It could be a callback. So if we collect calls at the end of the day, we could, when an agent logs in the next morning, they can immediately make an outbound call, and that's a list in SharePoint. That needs a minimum of two things. It needs the number of the person we want to call, and it then also has the skill of the agent that's going to deal with that inquiry. From here, we can show a number of different things, and we determine a UCC is an individual call flow. It's a unified contact center, and at UCC level, we would determine things like opening hours, and if you have different departments with different opening times, you might want to look at that in a different way and present information back into the business based on those different teams. We can upload a list to SharePoint again of all our upcoming holidays. So all of the call handling is automatic. When we're in a holiday mode, we will automatically understand that from our list. And then we can show some high-level information. So I think the two main things from a legacy perspective are the speed and ease in which we can make changes to the contact center from here. And I'll try and demonstrate that. We'll do a little call flow build and show you how that might work. And then also the reporting that you get from this usually is a lot more difficult to find in the legacy world. So what we're going to do, we're going to build a little call flow. We're going to make it relevant to this particular event. So I'm going to build a new skill. Let me just show you my warboard first. So this is an example of the warboards that we provide. We have two different options. We have a web warboard and we have an app. We don't charge for these, so you can have as many different views for different teams as you like. You can toggle between some different presentations of that data. These are all my demo environment, so there's not a huge amount of activity on these at the moment. You choose the view that you like, and then we're going to go and make some changes to my my environment. So I'm going to build a new one, a new team, and it's going to be called Commsverse. Make that team available on my warboard. I'm going to build a new agent, and Mark Vale has kindly suggested that I can make him an agent. So I'm going to add him just as a PSTN agent, so I can make a call out to him just to demonstrate how quickly and easily we can build something like this. So I'm going to build a new agent. I can make an agent formal or informal, and I can either use their SIP address or their tell URI. So Mark very kindly let me share his mobile number with everybody on this video call, which I'm sure he's going to thank me for later. Okay. I can also determine if Mark only works certain hours or certain time frames at this level, or we can pull that information through from AD. And now I'm going to allow Mark to take calls on behalf of Commsverse. So let's put a little skill per agent. Add a new one. I'm going to make Mark 100% skilled. That means that we can have a matrix that can be as complex or as simple as you like, and within that skills matrix, we can allocate the skill level of a particular skill for each agent. This is quite good for things like assigning a KPI or an SLA to a call handling process. So we might say, actually, we want to handle all of our calls within 2 minutes. And for the first 30 seconds, I might only want to hunt agents that are 100% skilled, because then we'll know we'll get the most appropriate agent. That can be across the whole business. Utilities like that, because they can drop the skill level down as they get closer to their SLA, and at that point they normally get fined, so they don't care who answers it, so they could drop the skill level down to 0. Okay, so we've added a new team. We've added a new agent to that team. We've allowed that agent to take calls on our behalf. So Commsverse is now showing in our live environment. What we need to do now is to change the IVR. So I can see graphically from here what my current setup looks like. So when we come through, you get to the main menu, and we've got a couple of options that we can choose, either press or say. I can see what happens when we're closed or when we go into an overflow. So let's go back and make some changes to the IVR. The reason I'm showing you this is this is one of the areas where we find that most of the change control process is quite long in most organizations. The idea is that because this sits within SharePoint, and we've already identified the people that could make those changes, we'd like to give the ability to local users to be able to be dynamic in the way that they deal with their contact center. So that even if it's just changing a greeting, that was something that took usually 2 weeks to provide, especially in the public sector. Let's just build a new option here. Choose this. I'm actually going to use the text-to-speech, which you probably wouldn't use as your first option, but in a demo environment, it's not too bad. Okay, so we've added a new team. We've added a new agent to that team, but they're just a PSTN agent. They're not actually really working for me. And I've allowed that agent to take calls on my behalf. And then I've changed the IVR so that we've got a full change, and we've added a new skill into that group. And then we've got options to do things like callback, manage that callback process, whether we've got a long call wait time. We could offer that to a caller to keep their position in queue, or to just have a generic callback. So let's show you how that call process works. I'm going to use my mobile phone. I'm going to make a call into my contact center. So I'll put this on speaker. You should be able to hear it. You should see the call pop into the call view.
Welcome to Commsverse. This conversation will be recorded for training purposes. Press 1 for Teams support. Press 2 for Commsverse.
So we'll press 2.
Press 3. You have chosen Commsverse.
So My call is now being
Your
hunted
call
to an
will be
agent.
answered by
I've
the
chosen an
next
option.
available representative.
I'm hoping Mark might answer his call. He could be
Please
pretty busy
stay on the
today.
line. You will be connected as soon as possible. One moment, please. Your call.
Hi, Mark. It's Andy at Anywhere365. You're just a part of my demo. Thank you very much for, for answering that call.
Hey, it works. I was surprised you were.
Thanks for that. Thanks. If you could hang up for me, that'd be great. Thanks, Mark.
Never really doubt. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Please rate the quality of the call from 0 to 9.
So I'm now going to give Mark my view of how my call went. So I'm going to give him a 9.
Thank you for improving our customer service. Have a nice day.
So what we've been able to do there is to make an outbound call to an agent that doesn't really work for us. That's not the normal view, but that's just to give you an idea of how flexible our platform is. Typically, we'd deliver a call into Teams, and we've got a few different ways that we can to show that. It could just be a direct call into Teams with nothing else, or we could extend that Teams client and give you more information. So if they're more customer facing agents, then we might be able to surface something from a back office system and give you an idea of what that might look like from the customer's view. I'll show you another new thing that we've had recently. So this is being able to embed our contact center into your preferred CRM tool. So this could be ServiceNow, it could be Salesforce. We're showing you here in Dynamics. So now I'm going to make a WhatsApp chat with my contact center. I'm going to send a message in from my mobile. Send that into the contact center. You can see on here that it's popped to the screen. So as an agent, I can preview that. You can see hello Commsverse, so that's the headline, and I've got some options to accept or reject it. We've also here recognized the number, but I've got 2 contact cards associated to that contact. So I can choose the relevant one, and I can get it to auto-populate the screen in the back end, and then me manage that communication. Now this is the same for any text-based communications. This is our omnichannel web agent embedded within CRM. So if I accept this, I can then be responsible for that chat through my window. So I could just type a message back. I could also have some predefined responses, so that allows me to build a database up of repetitive phrases that we might use over and over again. I can make any attachments from here. Within the integration with CRM, you can pre-configure some of the buttons at the bottom. So if we get a number that we've not got a contact card for, we could do a quick create. We might want to open an activity or link a case to some other areas or create new cases from here. So this just gives you that tool from an agent's perspective. We might want to transfer the call to somebody else, but I can handle it here as well. Also build up a timeline of any previous conversations in the agent view. Click on any open cases or do any call classification through this tool. Just going to finish that classification. So just to give you a rounded view of where some of those elements fit, we can also within our core platform allow some business tools. So we can do things like notifications, for example. So we could apply some logic to a process. For example, if we have got a busy period and the wait time is over a certain threshold, then we could send an IM or we can send an email to all of the agents. Again, if we're hitting our SLAs, that's great. If we're not, then we might want to notify somebody of that so that we can see a little bit more about what that looks like from a business perspective. Let me show you an idea of our reporting. So more and more we're seeing that the customers that we're dealing with want to be able to have a better view. You know, the core information you get from Teams doesn't always give this level of detail. So we can go in and have a look at a UCC report. We can use SQL Server or we can use Power BI to surface the information we capture in the SQL database. and then we can start to build some really good views in terms of what our contact centres look like and where our activity is. So I can see at a contact centre level that we've got a pretty good accepted rate. We've missed quite a few calls. If somebody doesn't stay on the line, that's the quick drop time and what our initial talk time and queue times are. But then it allows you to drill down the sorts of information that you would want to see within your reporting tool. What we like about Power BI is that it allows us to overlay different data sources. So we can see not only are we busy in the contact center at this point, but we might want to overlay things like our HR information. So, you know, are we busy because we don't have enough agents? Are we hitting our SLAs in the right places? What's the real reason that we don't have all that information in one place previously? So I think the integration with this and the way that you can build reports quickly for the relevant business units is really quite key. See where people are going and what they're spending their time doing, and then we can also go and drill down to an individual agent level. So really, really important that we, we capture this type of information, and we can see what's going on throughout our whole organisation. So I'm conscious that we're getting towards the end of the time allocated. So I just wanted to really go back into some observations that we've got about the market and why we're seeing the adaptation of Teams really coming to the fore at the moment. So I suppose, you know, the global pandemic has changed everything in terms of our view. So Teams adoption was good, but in March we saw, you know, mass rollouts quickly because, you know, there was 70% of most organizations weren't able to take advantage of the mobile options available to them. So, you know, they were sat at a desk with a physical machine and a physical phone in often most cases, and that really needed to change. So what's happened is we've seen organizations make hundreds, if not thousands, of Teams users quickly, and then on the back of that, we've needed to emulate or replicate the business process. So we've needed to have some controls, and we needed to have that contact center capability within Teams, and that's where most of our initial work was at the start of mid-March. What we've also seen is different areas finding that they needed to roll this technology out in different areas. So I think probably we saw public sector as the first piece, and they really needed, you know, they needed to provide services, and they didn't have a choice. They had to, you know, they had to provide those services regardless of whether their staff were in the office or not. So whereas some private sector organisations thought they could furlough staff and they could take stock, that wasn't really the choice for some of those areas. Microsoft did a really good job in rolling out free licenses for the health market. So we saw, again, very quick deployments of Teams. We wanted to bring that information into that sector, and you know, we've clearly been able to help those customers. NHS England and Public Health England are, you know, two recent customers, and they are now taking advantages of the tools that allow us to you know, to control those call flows and manage those dialogues with a disparate workforce. And then we've seen a spike in education. So, you know, the education market is again really reeling from what we've done, and they've had a product that is usually based on face-to-face environments, and now that clearly is going to be very different. But the drive for us was more about trying to get payments and trying to get calls answered from people that again couldn't be in an office environment. So you know, that clearing process, that onboarding process of new customers was something that we've seen you know, quite a drastic new case of uses for. And I think regardless of what happens, you know, this event, and testament to Mark and the team for being able to put this together, is showing us that the new normal isn't what we're used to. And I think if we do go back to any sort of normality, I don't think the work location or the work ethic is going to be the same. So we have to think about how we manage those teams that are not in a workplace anymore. And we do need to know that the calls are going to get answered. We do need to know that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And this is part of our process. Our approach to this has been that the platform can service everybody, and we don't want to charge individual users to be able to take advantage of this. Some people might need more tools, and that's great. But actually, what we're seeing is that, you know, being able to manage all of those dialogues, have some controls, utilize other back office platforms, and be completely embedded in that Microsoft ecosystem is where customers need to be. So I think that rounds us probably off to about the time that we expected. Could we, first of all, just let me know about a couple of sessions that we've got over the next couple of days. My colleagues, Eric and John, have got sessions tomorrow morning at 7 AM and at on the 8th at 7 AM. And this is more about how we can streamline those customer interactions. How do we bring in things like ITSM tools, CRM, and bots? So if you've got an early start on both of those days, then please be sure to go and log into those sessions for my colleagues. Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it. I'd like to open up for questions.
Thanks, Andy. We've had a good number of questions. I'll try and sort of group them together a little bit for you. So John asked, for the reception console, is it a standalone product? Does it need any of the Anywhere 365 backend or direct routing into Teams? And there was another question alongside, which is just attendant console was a big pain, hence people were not moving from Cisco Call Manager to Teams. Can you tell us more about the attendant console process?
Yeah, so this is due to be released in the next couple of weeks. We obviously, like everybody, have been trying to find the right method to be able to get the right call controls. So we're doing that through our web agent, and we've got a few different options that are available there. So depending on the deployment method, that could be a standalone option. Usually we find that most people like to incorporate it within an Anywhere platform, because then you get that whole visibility piece, and it's integrated, and you can have more than one agent rather than just being standalone. So I think more than happy to go and have a look at some of those use cases and see whether we can come up with some commercial offers and explain how that fits. But yeah, I think there are options for a different way of doing that.
Thank you. Another question here is the Snapper client bolt-on still a thing, or is that going away with Teams?
No, so it's still a thing. In fact, we're enhancing that, and we're going to give some more functionality to within the Snapper. So there's a few things. I think, you know, the Snapper will give you those extra elements. So from a remote management perspective, for, you know, being able to do some of the things that we don't have access yet into the client from Teams. So I think we all expect to have a deeper, richer integration set as we move forward. I might have explained that we're part of the certification process, that we're going through our Team Certified Contact Centre process at the moment. But I think we all know that there are, we're probably a little bit behind in terms of the APIs that are available currently for Teams. So that Snapper complements that Teams integration at the moment. So we can deliver a call into Teams, or we can have an app that gives us some more timeline information within Teams. But that call control type stuff isn't all there yet, and the access to the other information would be surfaced better through Snapper currently.
Thank you. A couple of questions relating to sort of CRM integration here. Ian asked, do you have to be licensed for omni-channel in Dynamics 365 to allow your solution to be used? And there was another question asking whether the Teams call can be handled in the CRM interface here.
So both good questions. The honest answer is I don't know for the first one. So in terms of, say, Dynamics or Salesforce or CRM type stuff, I don't know what license that you need. We basically surface our web agent within that frame. So I'm not sure on the licensing, but we can definitely come back to you and let you know of the experience that we've had in those environments. The call control again is the same sort of thing. So we still today need in some cases to be able to do that through the Teams client. We do have some options to be able to do that call control through the web agent in the CRM, but it depends on the environment and what we're working with. So again, both options probably are through Teams or through the web agent. We could do both.